liberty, and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Pat,
Second.
second by Mindy. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Second item on the agenda is student report. Summer?
Hi, I have a update from Student Council and Ms. Denson. And our goals for September were to enhance communication and increase engagement. And Student Council had elections for leadership roles, like class presidents, student body president and vice president, treasurer, secretary, and public relations. And we had fall homecoming, which was really fun. There was a lot of people at all the events. And we created a homecoming cup to increase engagement. And each class gets points for how many kids they have at each event, and other things like winning Power Puff and things like that. And then you win the homecoming cup if you have the most points. And then during homecoming week, Student Council encouraged students to bring in donations, which would help the Second Harvest Food Bank. In total, we received $231 in cash, 19 boxes of cereal, 18 condiments, 60 cans of food, 7 instant meals, and 210 personal care items. And the Student Council members also served breakfast to the teachers before their first staff meeting, and gave welcome bags to the new teachers at Grand Rapids High School. And that was September.
I have a question.
Yes,
Who won the cup?
the seniors did.
I was gonna say, they're probably all good ones.
Any other questions?
Nice job. Thank you, Summer.
Thanks so much.
Next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the 9/18/23 regular school board meeting. Looking for a motion.
So moved, David.
Moved by David,
Second.
second by Melissa. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda, approve the September 2023 claims in the amount of $6,882,343.72.
So moved.
Moved by Ben,
Second.
second by Pat. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 2023 September claims are approved. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Casey?
Thank you. Good evening, board. Tonight we have Cynthia Apple, food and nutrition replacement hire. Jacob Anderson, musical director replacement hire. Trina Badia, ESP replacement hire. Wade Chido, boys hockey coach resignation. Ryan Christensen, ESP replacement hire. Ryan Erickson, heavy duty mechanic replacement hire. Kelly Gunderson, ESP replacement hire. Dustin LaFawn, bus driver resignation. Mariah Linder, 8th grade girls basketball coach replacement hire. Cassandra Mickle, ESP replacement hire. Stefan Patter, high school head basketball coach replacement hire. Teresa Rudolph, custodian replacement hire. Jessica Stoltz, ESP resignation. And Jessica Yeshik, ESP replacement hire. I'm recommending approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Pat,
Support.
second by Ben. Reminder, there's no discussion on the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. Next item on the agenda, approve the educational support professional request for a general leave of absence for chronic Casey.
Before you have a request request from Glenna Tollroot for a leave of absence for the remainder of this school year. The leave is without pay or benefits from the district. There's no cost impact, and it is consistent with leaves that we've approved in the past. I'm recommending approval of the leave.
Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Mindy, second.
Support.
Ben, any discussion?
Okay, so you said this is consistent with past practice?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The general leave for Glenda is approved. Next item on the agenda, approve the 2023-24 and 24-25 bus drivers contract. Casey.
Thank you. So before you, you have the final kind of unit contract that we've been working through. Took a little time getting it here to the board and to get a vote out, but we've had this settlement for a little bit of time now. It's very consistent with what you've seen with the previous units. The highlights of the settlement for the bus drivers include a $1 per hour increase in year 1, 50-cent per hour increase in year 2, a small increase on the longevity schedule, a small increase on the bus storage payment, paid time for employees that are required to take physicals and random drug tests, a partial payout of sick leave for those at the accumulation limit, an additional personal day, and then consistent with the other contracts, moving on that second year to be paid by the pay period or being paid as they work. I'm recommending of the approval of the bus driver contract for the 23 through 25 school years.
Looking for a motion to approve the contract.
So moved, David.
Moved by David,
Support.
second by Ben. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'll be abstaining on this one.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I think it's worth just noting Casey's last comment. One of the priorities for the school board and the district this last round was to get our hourly employees moved to being paid off their hours worked versus annualized. And that'll really streamline and ensure that we can be as accurate as we can with pay and that kind of thing. So I'm grateful that we were able to get that done in our agreements.
Any further discussion? David?
I would add a note of thanks and appreciation to the unit members who sat with us and negotiated this. It was a lot of discussions to sort out a lot of details. And thanks also to the staff, the management staff that was there to realize this agreement.
All in favor of the contract, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bus driver's contract is approved.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, approve a resolution supporting election judges for November 7th, 2023 special election. Kara.
Good evening. Before you, you have a list of election judges for the November 7th special election. These are all certified judges. They've been all taken the required education pieces, and we're just asking for approval by the board for these individuals.
Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Ben,
Second.
second by Pat. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Chair, can we have a roll call vote as well?
You bet. Julie, go ahead.
Melissa Barr,
Yes.
Pat Maduri,
Yes.
Mindy Nuri,
Yes.
Mark Schroeder,
Yes.
David Marty,
Yes.
and Ben Hawkins.
Yes.
The election judges for the special election are approved. Next item on the agenda, approve a resolution establishing an absentee ballot board. Kara.
Thank you. The school district must approve the ballot board. The county is responsible for it, and the list of members are listed on the resolution. So I'm just asking that you approve this list of the ballot board.
Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mindy, second.
Second.
Second by Melissa. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, I think it's worth just acknowledging, there's been some questions about the election itself and the administration of the election. And as you can see tonight from the materials and a previous contract that the board had with the county, all of this, we're working very closely with the election officials from the county, including the election judges and the process and staffing and things like that. So just wanted to make those identified and clear.
Any other discussion? Julie, I think we need a roll call vote on this one.
Ed Maduri,
Yes.
Mindy Nuring,
Yes.
Mark Schroeder,
Yes.
David Marty,
Yes.
Ben Hawkins,
Yes.
Melissa Barr.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Next item on the agenda, Kara, a new account with Zion Bank Corporate Trust.
Yes, our certificates of participation that we had approved and got bids on that Greg had presented to us, we will receive the proceeds from that on October 18th. And this Zion Bank is a corporate trust. The proceeds need to be deposited into a corporate trust, which will then be deposited into our account. So this is kind of like a formality, but we need, since we're opening a new bank account, we need to do this through state statute. So just asking for your approval for this.
Looking for a motion by David. Second. Mindy. Discussion.
Mr. Chair. Kara, we don't have any other banks that we're currently members to the?
We do. We have several banks that we have funds in. This specific corporate trust works. I didn't have a choice. Let's put it that way. This is where we had to put the funds to have them transferred from the buyer of the certificates of participation.
So do they take anything off the top for?
$3,500.
Yeah, thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? The Zion Bank Corporate Trust account has been approved. Is there any other business to come before the board? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Julie, are we geared up to roll straight into the workshop? Call the workshop to order. We only have one item on the agenda, and that would be a referendum update and reduction discussion. Matt, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. While Julie's getting that, the slides up, thought it would be important to connect tonight on the referendum, share some feedback and some insight on what we know now, some more work that we've put in, as well as have some discussion about what's at stake when we look at consequences of our referendum passing or not passing on November 7th. Along with that, I just want to reiterate some things I've said before, and I'll continue to say. I was hired to make 318 the best version of itself that it can be. I'm grateful for that opportunity. One of my goals is to make this the default district in area code 218. If somebody's moving to this area code, this is where they go. It's a no-brainer. And to do that, we have to be financially stable. We have to be financially healthy. And that means it enables us to make decisions about programs and people that are focused on what's best for children, what's best for our students, and provides a stable and predictable employment for our staff. And we're in a spot right now where the job that I'm being asked to do includes ensuring that we have what we need and bringing tough conversations forward when necessary. And so that's a little bit of what we're going to get into tonight. Just to set the stage for some context, as a review in a sense, for several years, K-12 funding hasn't addressed the costs of education that have continued to go up, and that's required us to manage our budget shortfalls through cuts. We've made $7.4 million in the last 4 years. That's meant 70 positions, and I'll reiterate something we've said a number of times, those reductions have come from all employee groups or many employee groups, principals, district level staff, support staff, teaching staff, student services. Along with that, we've had cooperation from our unions and employee groups to adopt a healthcare coverage plan that will save the district funds in the long run. It's one of our kind of our large outliers when we compare ourselves to like school districts, and one of the reasons why we've been in budget challenges. And the results of these cuts have been fewer, I don't know what's going on, Julie. There we go. These cuts have resulted in fewer course offerings. We've had to eliminate some programs, and we've seen class size increases. I just saw some data today. We have the largest kindergarten class sizes in northeastern Minnesota of the 20-some districts that report. And it's been a challenge, I think, for maybe the first time in a long time for ISD 318 struggled to retain staff, and we've heard stories about staff choosing to go elsewhere instead of stay here just because our environment, our employment's not as stable as we need it to be or want it to be. Second, the state's efforts this spring were not enough. This is something that we hear about from time to time. We did receive 4% on the formula for this current year and 2% next. But a number of mandates and unfunded requirements have really impacted that. And that record bill all of a sudden looks different when those mandates and those unfunded requirements are taken off. We've seen both parties acknowledge in different ways that what happened wasn't enough. The Democratic Party, the day after the bill was passed, the leadership from the Education Finance said that there's no way to make up for decades of underfunding in one bill. And the Republican Party had more money on the formula as part of their proposals. So both parties had an acknowledgement that what happened this spring, while perhaps better than we've seen before, certainly wasn't enough. I've stated over and over again that the tools available to us, which is cutting, reductions, though that's not an effective way to become an excellent school district, and that's our goal, that's our aim. And then finally, something that continues to be a message that we're talking about and continues to be a surprise to people when we do, is that we're in the minority of school districts. We're not an albatross here as a school district struggling financially. Most districts have had to do what we're attempting to do here. They've had to do this long before we have. And so as a district, we've hung on as long as we can. We've hung on longer than most, and we're just simply needing to get further investment. When we've been out and about, and even going back to June, we've heard some things from the community. It's been resoundingly clear our community wants us to stop cutting. They felt it. They have kids in classes that are large. They have kids that can't take classes because they don't exist. And so we've heard that loud and clear. We also heard priority 2, which was, restore programming, restore people, invest in our staff. That was priority 2. And then finally, meet students' needs, invest in excellence, and whether that's elementary music or arts programming all the way through CTE, preparing kids for work, college, we need to be investing in kids. And that breadth of experience is what's important to our community for a well-rounded education here. So we heard that over and over again. Our plan, as we move that forward, addresses those community priorities. It also addresses our district's financial picture. If our referendum passes, we're going to be able to continue to balance our budgets. We're going to be able to provide stability and predictability to our staff, to our community. People won't need to wonder from year to year where their kid's going to go to school or what their class schedule might look like. The levy timing, the timing is a question that's come up from time to time about why not before, why not after. We're asking for help right when we need it, not before we need it. And we can't wait any longer because the COVID funding is going to drop off, and the levy funding collected in 2024 calendar year will come right when we need it. So we're asking for what we need right when we need it. It restores things that we've lost. Again, the priority identified. The other thing, it enables us to think long-term. Instead of thinking a month or a year at a time, we can start to think about long-term programs that we can sustain over time, not things that are stopgap or we are hesitant to put in place because we don't know if we can continue it. We know we can put some things in place that we can stick with long-term. Our strategic plan also supports the work, the operational plan, and it supports the financial plan that we've brought forward, providing equitable education for all kids, creating a culture around here of belonging, doing things that we know work scientifically and based on research, leveraging partnerships and relationships internally and externally, improving communication, and then finally taking care of the things that have been entrusted to us by the community. Our plan does that by lining up very strategically, and this is how I've described our plan over and over to people. Question one addresses priority one, and that is financial stability. That's been priority one by our staff, by our internal kind of leadership, also by our community. Stop cuts, be stable. That's priority one, question one. Question two is priority two. That's restoring programming, putting things back we've lost, investing in staff. And we do that by using the capital projects levy to fund some things that we're currently spending general fund money on and replacing that expenditure with capital projects funds. And then question three is priority three, and that's advanced excellence. And again, those are the things that we need to be doing as a school district that make us great and that make us excellent. So our priorities line up perfectly with our questions. That's what our community has been presented with and needs to continue to be aware of.
Matt?
Yeah.
Before you move forward, could you talk a little bit about the difference between the operating levy and then the capital project levy?
Thank you. So an operating levy that we have two questions. One and question three are operating levies. Those are funded on a dollar amount per pupil basis, and this is all dictated by the state. We don't have a choice about how this looks on a ballot. We don't have a choice about who pays for what, but operating levy is our local residents and our business owners contribute to that, to an operating levy. Operating levies can be renewed once at the initial term, and all of our questions are out there for 7 years, so the board in 7 years would have the choice to make to renew one time by roll call vote. Anything beyond that would require community election. Question two is a capital projects levy. It shows up in the ballot different. It's listed as a tax rate, and it taxes homeowners and businesses differently, and it also includes seasonal recreational property. And that's a big difference between the operating levy and the capital projects levy. We heard from our community that they felt like everybody should have some skin in the game or have some fair share contribution. And so question two is designed that way to bring in seasonal recreational people into the mix. They certainly benefit from a high quality community. Like I mentioned, question two, that capital projects levy, the best example that I think we've come up with is currently when we're buying buses, we need to use the same bucket of money to buy buses that we pay for people with. And with the capital projects levy in place, we'll be able to buy buses out of that capital projects levy that frees up that general fund money to be used for people and programs that we cut. Good question, thank you. Any other questions so far? All right, Kara?
Yeah, I just wanted, can you clarify, we can't go for a sales tax levy, right? Like
Right.
the city and county.
Right, so our levy, one of the things that's been unique in discussing school district options with people is that our options as a school district funding wise are just so different than municipalities and other units of government. Their levy is set by their council or their board, and they have the ability to do sales taxes on things. We've seen that locally. Those are not options available to school districts. We have to, we levy annually, just like the city and the county do, but the state limits our levy. There's a limit on that, and that's, we just recently have been going through that process. In order to do something different than that state kind of cap, we have to do exactly what we're proposing to do now, to get permission from the voters to do that. City and counties don't have to do that. So very different landscape for school districts. Moving into question 1, question 2, and question 3, one of the things that we've heard from people, people want to know, what does this all mean? What happens? So question 1, that stabilizing funding priority, if that passes, what does that mean? It means no budget cuts this spring. It means no budget cuts through at least fiscal year 28. I'd love to say we could go out longer than that and guarantee that, but I also don't want to, as a superintendent, and I know Kara doesn't either, want to be able to promise things when many of the variables are outside of our control. We're confident about projections out that far, but when you start talking about state commitments of formula dollars, inflation, insurance, enrollment, there's a lot of variables in there. But we know that if question 1 passes, there won't be budget cuts through fiscal 28 at least. The other part that question 1 enables us to do is to increase our fund balance. We have a policy that articulates that our goal is between 10 and 15% for our fund balance of our expenditures, and we're far short of that now. It's not just about having money in the bank, it's about providing stability and enabling us to plan and to weather some challenging times and not have to have drastic cuts when we do, to be able to use those reserves to sort of weather some storms as they come. 10 to 15% is conservative, but it's less than the state average. The state average is in the 20s, and it's less than our auditors kind of require or would prefer, but it's an area, it's an amount that's reasonable for a school district our size. So that's question 1. Stabilizing finances, not cutting the budget, that was priority 1, and then restoring that fund balance where it should be. If question 1 doesn't pass, we'll be cutting this spring, and we'll be cutting until the revenue and expenditure sides of the ledger line up. Question 2, again, the focus on question 2, priority 2 is restoring programming and attracting and retaining staff. Question 1 has to pass in order for question 2 to pass, and so we have the benefits of question 1 that come along, but then also we're able to put some things back. At the elementary, what does that mean? It means targeted class size reduction. I mentioned kindergarten's being high, our 3rd grade is high. We get to our middle school, we see the same thing. Our middle school principal's here. He could verify we've got large class sizes there. High schools, we have many classes in the 40s. And so one of the things we would do right away is add some sections, add some teachers to bring class sizes to areas so they're to numbers that are reasonable. Restoring programming and restoring staff also means adding some of the things that electives that we've lost. At the elementary, we've lost some music programming, we've lost some engineering, we've lost some arts. The middle school, if you walk around the middle school, you see empty rooms that used to have stuff, really good stuff happening in there, whether that was language instruction or engineering, technology. And then the high school is similar. There's empty rooms, high numbers, and adding that staff would enable us to put some more courses back in that course book and meet kids' needs better. It would also provide some sustainable safety funding. Right now, and we went through kind of a tough conversation about this in the past about our school resource officers. Our school safety money is not sufficient to meet our costs when it comes to school safety, period. We're subsidizing school safety from the general fund.
Matt, question in regards to question 2 here, and it kind of ties into question 3, when we talk about restoring program. Will there be an opportunity, or should there be an opportunity for the community to weigh in a little bit on what they might like to see, or what they might like to see come back? Whatever comes back may be different than what we had. I think it's an opportunity for us to have some community input. Obviously, the district has the final say-so, but just because we had this, that might not necessarily mean that's what we want to see again. Is there something different that we can bring in that would provide better opportunity, more opportunity to students?
Thanks, Pat. I agree with that 100%. We actually just talked about that on our principal meeting today, that we've lost opportunities, and what we want to make sure and do moving forward is the opportunities that we're providing are the opportunities that our community wants, our parents want, our kids want, our staff want, our leaders want. So we would need to get some feedback on what are those things, what is important. I don't want to, and it wouldn't be wise to just assume that what we took out was what we should put right back. In some cases it will be, but in some cases I think it won't be. And it enables us to become, I think, a better version of what our community wants. So absolutely.
Thank you. And I view it as an opportunity, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not always where you get a chance to sort of reset in a sense, and that's kind of what that does.
Thank you.
If question 1 passes and question 2 doesn't pass, again, question 2 is contingent on 1. We'll be able to do that stabilizing, avoiding cuts, but we won't be able to add anything back. So I think it's important that our community understands that too, that question 1 enables us to stop the pain of cuts, but it does enable us to address class size. It doesn't enable us to put things back. And so that's one of those decisions the community has to wrestle with about who we want to be and what we want to look like as a school district. Finally, question 3, advanced excellence. Because question 1 and 2 are included in that, we have the benefits of 1 and 2, things being added back, stabilizing our budget, but then we start to do those things that we know are really important that we can't do now and haven't been doing. Increased access to student academic, behavior, mental health support, same thing at the middle school. Again, continuing to ramp up those elective offerings, becoming a comprehensive program for kids in that adolescent age. Same at the high school. How do we ramp up our program for pre-college? How do we ramp up our program for pre-career? How do we become a leader when it comes to supporting high school kids academically? In many school districts, including ours, we have supports in place at the elementary. It just becomes a lot less sophisticated and in place when we get to the secondary level, middle and high school. And I think we could do some really important work and some really great work there. So that's question 1, question 2, and question 3 in a nutshell. Again, people are asking, what does it mean if it passes? I think this kind of lays out what those things will look like. And like Pat said, there's opportunity here to fine tune what those specific opportunities are based on what our community wants and our kids are interested in. Any questions before we move on from this?
Yes, Matt, can I just ask a real basic, simple question, I guess? We've talked a lot about if this passes, here's what we can do, here's the opportunity, and here's the growth. If it doesn't pass, and I've talked to a lot of people who are just nervous about passing this and feeling that they're just really pinched and stressed right now, can't the school just pull your belt in a notch and get through for another year? Can't we just go business as usual?
Yeah, the short answer is no. We would, the only reason that we've not been cutting even more has been COVID funding, one-time funds. We will have a deficit, especially without COVID funds. Our budget target for reductions, if these pass, is $3 million in terms of cuts. And so it won't be just, we can hold on another year if it fails. We'll be cutting $3 million if it fails. And so there's no, I got asked about what's your plan B, Mr. superintendent, and really they're, I mean, I guess it's a good way to say it from the standpoint of there's one side of the coin and there's another side of the coin, and really those are the only two sides. It's either, we either have an investment by the community, and our community decides it wants to invest in schools and be that kind of school district, or we're continuing to make cuts. Those are our two choices as a community in this, this election.
Thank you.
Do we have this information up on our website, weare318.org?
This information here isn't yet, but it will be, after the board, the board's had a chance to look at it and discuss. So this will be, our website's been evolving and getting more information every week. This will be the kind of information that we add this next week. As we've been out there, like David mentioned, I'm not talking to a lot of people that think cutting budget is a great idea, or that thinks we should just keep doing that. There are some, but they are by far the minority of people that think we should just cut our way out of this. There's some misinformation that's been out and about the size of our budget. I've seen the number of $100 million and $70-some million. We talk about our expenditures, our operating funds as $60 million. That's what we use to pay for our operations. Certainly there have been years when it's been more, when we've had construction projects going on. If we add up all the funds together, there might be $100 million one year and $20 million less than that the next, depending on construction projects. So it's really not comparing apples to apples or being honest about our budget or comparables when we pluck numbers. If we're talking about consistent apples to apples comparisons, that's why we always use the operating budget, because that's the consistent budget that we can refer to from year to year. Administrative staffing and salaries has been something that's come up. District property and land, our website there has answers. There'll be a expanded FAQ about the district property and land. I know that's come up a great deal, and many people have been very, very curious and interested and appreciative to know the details of that Murphy sale, not just the sale amount, but that the value that was in the lease of $370,000+ there. Many people weren't aware of that, and again, that's at today's lease rates. Over time, those will go up, so it actually will be more than that over time. So that's been helpful, but our website continues to build out, and people should go there for those answers. Lots of questions coming in where we've been trying to answer those within 24 hours if we can, and get back to people right away. Another thing that's been consistent, kind of a consistent drumbeat, is what if this doesn't happen? What if this doesn't go? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? So we're going to be talking about that next. So before we get into that, I want to just lay out a couple things. I mentioned our target is $3 million. That's our target today, because our financial picture is evolving. We've used COVID funds in the past to balance our budget. That means we started the year in a hole. That hole has to get filled, and we can't use COVID funds forever. They're expiring, and we have to use those. This is the time of year when we're thinking about 3 different budget years, really. We have budget years that are ending. We have an audit underway. We're living in a budget, and here we are talking about next year's budget. So we really are in 3 years at the same time. I don't think it's worth or important tonight that we talk about priorities when we go through these options. I'm going to be laying out some packages, if you will, or some alternatives. This is really about hierarchy or priorities. It's about having a sense of what's on the table if we're talking about $3 million. And so we also don't want to be in a position where it sounds like a if this or else threat. I don't think people respond well to threats, but it is important that people understand and have clarity about what is on the table when we're talking about reductions like we are. And this isn't, we don't adopt a budget in October. We adopt budgets in spring. That's when we do that work. That's when the board does that work. So, but I think the questions need to be answered around what are the things that are on the table. And so what you'll see here, I have some reductions that are included in a base, things that we would be reducing or I'd be recommending regardless of how the alternatives play out. The first one is that we eliminate or delay additional purchases. So that means our curriculum would continue to get older, our buses would continue to get older, our technology would continue to get older. And you know and I know that that's not a permanent solution. Eventually buses have to get replaced. Eventually technology has to get replaced. Eventually curriculum has to get replaced. But we would include that in our base reduction recommendation. Student activities would be in a base recommendation at this point. We eliminate or reduce the number of activities at our high schools and our middle school. So that would be in the base reduction. And then third, one of the things that our elementary principals have brought forward, and I don't know how this affects the middle school as much, but restricting the hours of our elementary school. We currently have parents that are dropping off students at 7:40. That means we have to staff at 7:40, and we would quit doing that. We would start staffing at 8 o'clock. And obviously that would be challenging to some parents who have to work at 8. But we would do that as a way to cut our budget and have our buildings open at 8 when a number of our contracts start. Then we start looking at alternatives. I want to just again say that these aren't in any order. None of these are alternatives that I'm excited to talk about. They'll have significant implications. Alternative A has to do with reducing educational space, as well as moving to grade level buildings. And so what that means is that we would temporarily or permanently close a school facility. That school facility would most likely be Cohasset, because that would be the only building we'd have where we could accommodate those kids in another school reasonably. That reduction would include the associated staff positions, and so something that happens, or the connection that people don't sometimes make when we talk about a building closure like that, that means those sections don't transfer to East and West, for instance. We have 8 sections of first grade now. We wouldn't take Cohasset's 2 sections and add those to East and West and have 10. The savings has to come by eliminating sections. And you don't have to do the math very long to realize that when you take sections out, that means that class sizes will go up. Now, I included moving to grade level buildings with this because really the only way to be efficient with that small a number of sections is to have grade level buildings, because we need to be able to balance our class sizes across all the sections in that grade. We had 12 sections of all grade levels 4 years ago. We're down to 10 now. This would bring it down to 8 or 9, depending on the grade level. I mentioned earlier that our kindergarten classes are in the high 20s, or the highest in the Northeast. Under this plan, all of our elementary class sizes would be right around 30. One grade might even be a little higher than that if we went down to 9 sections. So cutting 5 sections total out of our elementary program.
Matt, just a question for clarification, more so for the public. You talk about the sections that we had 12 at one point, now we're down to 10.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean we have a student reduction. No. Okay. It means our class sizes are just getting bigger.
It just means the class sizes have gotten bigger and bigger. And this last spring, it also meant that we had to restrict where students went to school. And so that was another change that we made. It's requiring some students to attend in particular boundary areas. We have in this alternative, we have obligations with the city of Cohasset in that building, and so it's not as simple as just the school district locking the doors. We have some obligations there with the city. Something also, Cohasset's our highest performing building in our whole district. High student achievement, happening there. Some consequences or other things in this model, in this idea that are really challenging. It's really, really difficult to reopen a building. I've seen districts try to temporarily close a building. They rarely reopen, because to get back to where you were or beyond back to where you were, to reopen that building is really, really tough, and it requires a lot of resources. There's been a lot of investments made into that building. It's a very, very good structural building. I mentioned class sizes going up. If we didn't do the grade level buildings, it would require new boundaries and transportation rerouting. There still would be some transportation change if we went to grade level, because kids getting picked up at one site, one home, could potentially be going to two different elementary schools. I know that idea was discussed when the buildings were originally built, but that would be there would need to be some transportation changes there. And this alternative is really, really, really heavily impacting on elementary. There's really not a huge impact felt by Big Fork or felt by our gyms or felt by the high school. It's really a east-west and Cohasset impacting kind of an alternative. But again, bringing this forward as an alternative when we think about the work that has to get done and potential budget reduction options.
Matt, when you say grade level buildings, what does that mean?
Yeah, thank you. I should have been more clear. That means that one of the buildings would be K2 and one of the buildings would be 3rd through 5th grade. And again, the benefit of that is we're able to better balance all the 3rd graders, for instance, across the 8 or 9 sections that would be there, rather than trying to balance them. Right now, we try to balance them in 3 schools. We would just have one set of teachers, 3rd grade teachers, to balance those kids among.
And those buildings are identical.
They are identical, yep. And the biggest probably, or one of the unique things that we would need to work through, the kindergarten classrooms have bathrooms in them that really wouldn't be useful to 3rd grade kids just because they're little.
Okay.
Yeah. And so from a parent standpoint, drop off, one of the things I think that, was brought up as a concern when this was explored earlier as a parent, if you're dropping off your kids, you could be dropping kids off at 3 different buildings theoretically, depending on the ages of those kids. And we have some of that potentially now. If you have a kid at, east and middle school and high school, there's 3 different drop-offs, but there would just be more of it, it would be longer.
Matt, I realize you got 4 alternatives here, and I know there's ideas that you're just putting out here with assistance from administrators and stuff. Will there be an opportunity for the community to weigh in on this from their perspective? Obviously, this is going to be a big change, whatever the alternative or whatever the plan is. One, I think it's important that we share whatever it is that we're thinking, so that we can get some feedback from them before it happens. And I realize that's a challenge in itself to do, but I think it could be very beneficial to us in the future if this doesn't pass.
Yeah.
And we need to go back to the community and ask. This would really give them an understanding on how difficult of a situation we're actually in.
Yeah.
If they can weigh in, hear what we're potentially proposing, whether it's alternate A or B, C, D, whatever, getting some feedback from them and help them really understand the situation.
Yeah, for sure we'll be doing some communicating this week with parents about this once, the board has had a chance to see, what kind of things we're talking about as far as being on the table. I think you're right. I think I was just meeting with staff, and there was a little bit of we're not sure parents understand or the community understands the gravity of the situation. We're not just talking about a couple of buses here or a couple activities there. We're talking about significant changes again to how we do business. What school looks like here in 318, and our community certainly needs to understand, the significance of the decisions and the significance of the reductions, however they play out.
And I would just add one other side to that, Matt, is that it's a big structural change for us, but it's a structural change for the parents as well.
Right.
And what they do. I just think of the things in years past, the little tweaks we might have done here or there, and the pushback that we got from parents over those.
Yeah.
This is big.
There are big, there are huge consequences. The stakes are big. November 7th, stakes are really big. And so this would be a real significant consequence, for sure. Go ahead.
I just think getting to 3 million is half of what we've already cut. You know what I mean? So the pain of that, I mean, people really didn't start feeling the pain until this year, the year before. Some folks felt it a little bit, depending on what program. But this is half of what and it's not a one-time cut. You can't cut just 3 million because then next year you're cutting again, just due to inflation and rising costs. So you can't just cut 3 million. I mean, 3 million is what, 60 staff?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, yeah.
And it's like, yes, you're better at math than me, so I'll defer to you.
Yeah.
But these can't be one-time dollars.
Well, yeah, exactly, and I think the thing that's also a challenge, because costs will continue to go up, it won't be where, and just like we've seen the last 3 or 4 years, it wouldn't be that because reductions are made in the spring of '24, that would mean we're done. It won't fix the structural problem. It'll take care of the budget for the next fiscal year. And then in the following spring, we'll have to take care of the following fiscal year's budget by additional reductions, unless, there's some new miracle. I wish it was as simple as some sort of like an inoculation that you could do one time and it would fix things forever, as far as reductions go. But the money has to be, or the expense has to be something that's ongoing in order to impact. And as long as expenses continue to outpace revenues, we'll just be in this kind of a cycle for quite some time. Alternative B, C, and D, keep all of our sites open. They just have different variables or kind of adjustments based on kind of the other parts there. Alternative B is some restructuring of operations, shifting to a 4-day school week, and again, moving to grade level buildings. Shifting to grade level buildings enables us to save a couple sections based on how I'm looking at the numbers. Even if we kept Cohasset open, we could save a couple sections there. The 4-day week isn't, it's not a giant savings. It doesn't, I'm estimating would be less than 500,000 if we went to it. But the savings are in transportation and subs. That's where the savings come. And some conversations I've had with other superintendents. But that would be another structural change we could make that would save money. There would, on top of those two things, there would still need to be additional staff reductions, and I'm estimating that would be around 18 different positions. Just like we've done before, those staff reductions would come from across employee groups: administration, teaching, ESPs, support staff. That's the case for the rest of these. This would also be a disruption to families with the 4-day week with the grade level building. Similarly, contributes to a 4-day week can contribute to a already challenging childcare dynamic in our community. And we can't lose positions without it affecting students. And so students would be affected by further loss of opportunities, electives, classes, courses, and then we'd also have higher class sizes across the system. So there's some consequences to alternative B as well. Alternative C, again, these aren't in any particular order, and really there's lines up and down that appear firm and discrete between these. At the end of the day, there might be some movement in between, or some pieces that we take from a couple different ones. But in alternative C, that focuses on additional activity reductions. We already have some up above, I mentioned. Alternative C goes deeper into student activities. And because Big Fork doesn't have a lot of activities compared to Grand Rapids High School, these would predominantly come from Grand Rapids High School. That wouldn't be enough to avoid staff reductions. 80+% of our expense is from staff, and we're in the people business. It's not surprising. I'm estimating that would be about 23 positions if we did that. And similar to B, that means fewer student opportunities. That means higher class sizes. Those cuts would come from across employee groups like before, and the number would be higher because there's just not you can't get real far with activities. It's not a gigantic part of our budget. It's important and significant, but not huge. One of the things that happens in districts when they eliminate student opportunities or activities, sometimes they'll see enrollment go away. Students move to go to other districts that have the opportunities they lost, and then the effect of those cuts goes down. And so there's a little bit of a kind of a net change there that happens. The other thing that happened this last year, we did increase fees at both the high school. We also increased fees at the middle school. So the middle school activity fee is as high as the high school. So that's decreased the net effect of eliminating middle school sports. But there still would be a savings for eliminating middle school sports. Any questions? There are other questions about B and C? Then in alternative D, one of the other things on the table would be eliminating our ADSYS program. And I'll just say, that's our academic and behavior intervention. It's the core, it's the guts of our academic and behavior intervention system. It's more fleshed out at the elementary for sure. It's kind of in the process of growing, but that reduction would be really, it would really tear that backbone of that program out. We have hundreds and hundreds of kids that are getting interventions every day, very targeted, and so there would be some significant reduction in achievement, and a lot more pressure as well on Tier 1 or core instruction. Eliminating ADSYS wouldn't in and of itself, again, accommodate the whole reduction we would need to make. There'd be additional staff reductions that we would need to make. I'm estimating 15. Again, thus 15 would be from across teaching, student support, administrative, district positions, and some of the same issues that come with those reductions, higher class sizes, lost opportunities. The other thing about D, because ADSYS is a pretty heavy elementary focused program at this point, I mean, the goal of our district, if we weren't talking about resource problems, would be to grow ADSYS up through high school. But because it's not through high school now, this is another alternative that's pretty heavy on the elementary, because most of that intervention is happening at the elementary now. So impacts the elementary a little bit disproportionately, although when we looked at those staff reductions, we'll probably accommodate some of that by looking at the middle and high school levels there.
Superintendent Gross, isn't ADSYS a reimbursed program, and wouldn't that in effect make it a one-time cut?
Yeah, that's a good observation, Mr. Chair. It is a reimbursed program. The majority of that reduction would be felt in the first year. After that, the effect of that reduction would be way less. And so when we were looking at, if the referendum didn't pass, which is when we'd be doing this, the reductions in the second year would have to be higher, essentially, because there wouldn't be as much coming out of the budget in the first year reductions. Does that sound, Kara?
Yeah, and the revenue is delayed a year. So let's say we cut $1 million in year one, we're still gonna get, let's say 50%, so the benefit would be 1.5 million that first year. The next year, we have zero revenue coming, zero gain in expense cuts. So that's where the cuts would have to grow.
So it's kind of stupid to cut it.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's the challenge of The challenge or one of the things I guess that makes this not a real, and again, they're all not great options. This is an important part of our academics and behavior support for kids, eventually K-12. We were only able to get into this program because of the way the reimbursement works, because of strategic use of COVID funds. Just like reopening a school is difficult to do once it's closed, getting back into the ADSYS program to the degree we are after it was been reduced would be really, really hard.
It would be like cutting special ed.
Yeah, right.
Even though it's probably 50% reimbursed, and you can't do it anyway,
Yeah.
but it'd be similar.
Mr. Chair, Matt, at some point in time, will you come back with dollars attached to each one of these? For me, I'm just gonna lay it out there, there's two things that I struggle with. One, close the class, and two is ADSYS, just what we're talking about. We've seen great leaps and bounds with ADSYS, and I think it's been said when we first started talking about this, we can't afford not to do this, right? In regards to how well it benefits students going forward. And I realize we gotta make some reductions, and I realize there's gonna be some tough decisions, and for me, we get more detail at some point in time. I know that a lot of work went into this, difficult work went into this between you and the administrators to come up with this, but if this one particular issue here is gonna be 1.2 million, and this one over here is 800,000, I think it's, for me, it's be easier to sit on, okay, pros and cons on this.
Sure.
And I realize that bottom number that we have to get to, that 3
Yeah.
point whatever it is going forward, and I realize that number is probably gonna increase by next spring. So, yeah, at some point,
Yeah,
you
we'll
can do
need to
that.
get,
All of this makes me sick to my stomach. I hope it makes everybody sick to their stomach.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
So it makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
Because I just think we cut activities and there are so many kids who only show up because of the activities.
Mr. Chairman, I have to say that I'm really deeply opposed to all of these. I'm not faulting the research that's gone into this. I understand the position that we're in, but these are disastrous cuts on a school district that really is an exemplary school district. And our community needs to step up and give us enough funding to move forward. It's just, there is no other choice.
any other comments or questions? I appreciate those comments. I agree. One of the things that I see and I remind myself of is the opportunity that exists here as a school district, the potential of this place. We have to be resourced and able to in order to do that. And like we've talked about ad nauseum, most districts in the state benefit from the kind of thing we're asking our community for. And that's not a reason to do it just because everybody else is. But clearly we've done the work on our side of the ledger to take care of, our own accountability financially, budget-wise, also with our benefits and employees stepping up to help with that. We've done a lot of heavy lifting, and I get that property taxes are a challenge. I get that the timing is an issue. I think it ultimately comes down to what kind of community does our community want to be? What is our identity going to be? Is it going to be one that supports kids and supports schools and known for that? Or is it going to be known for something else? Looking ahead, we're going to continue to get information out. Early voting is underway right now. We've had, people can vote from 8 to 4:30 at the courthouse. They can vote on Thursdays at the Rife from 3 until 7. People have been finding that convenient to do after work and things like that. So we'll continue to information about that, we have early voting at the Edge on October 16th from 2:30 to 7. And so that's an opportunity for our community in Big Fork to vote early, or anybody that's up there. We have 4 polling locations. Again, we established combined polling locations in the past. We have to do that every December. Our website continues to evolve and grow and have more information on it. We've gotten a lot of comments on it about how people are really able to learn when they're on it. So continue to point people towards that, and we will continue to answer questions as they come our way, as expediently and as conclusively as we can. As I mentioned earlier, the plan is for us to communicate a version of this out to staff and parents tomorrow, so that staff get this information as well, parents get this information as well. Our first video launched today, going deeper into question 1 and what is at stake there. But it's just a phrase I've been using a lot. There's just a lot at stake for our community right now, and I think this is one of those things that we can't afford to not do as a community. That's it, Mr. Chair, unless there's other questions.
Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Hearing none, any other business to come before the board? Hearing none, workshops adjourned.